Sorry, Celia. I figured, we had enough of that. She's talking bad about me, so. Last week or week before, I don't remember, I was hanging out with Jacob Baker. Yeah. And Jacob's 9. Yeah. Yeah, Jacob was telling me at school that if you forget your lunch, you used to get peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which was all right. But he said now, because everything's got to be healthy, like you just get peanut butter, and it's just not the same. What is peanut butter and jelly without the jelly? It just doesn't make sense, does it? I was thinking about, I play guitar, and I've got some really nice guitars, and man, I've been just blessed. People have just overwhelmingly blessed me with nice guitars, and that's awesome. But I was thinking, man, as awesome as those guitars are, they are of absolutely no good without strings. I mean, you can have a guitar and it can look awesome and it can be just a work of art. But if you don't have strings, it's kind of just art, right? It's kind of useless. I passed a Ferrari on the road the other day, and that means that he was either sporting it or I was going too fast, right? And I thought, man, that is one awesome car. I don't know what a Ferrari runs, about 180,000 something, I don't know. I mean, they're not giving them away. And I haven't test drove one because, well, you take one look at me and you know I ain't paying for it. But I was thinking about that car and how beautiful and awesome and perfectly made these cars are. And I mean, just incredible cars. But what do you need for that Ferrari? Insurance. You're going to need gas, right? The most expensive car in the world, and you're still going to need a couple of bucks worth of gas, or it's just going to sit there. And so as I was looking at all of these things in life and kind of observing that everything that is out there in the world, everything that we have and everything that God has given us, they all have this one little part that if it's missing, you're in trouble. When I was in the Marines, we used to have to do these rifle, you had to take your rifle apart and put it back together, and you had to do it like really fast. Well, there was this guy in my platoon, and he forgot one little part. And it really wasn't noticeable at all. From the outside, the rifle still looked like a killing machine, right? But you may know the one little part I'm talking about. It's about this long, looks like it would go in a pin. It's the firing pin. Now that rifle is powerful. It's got like a maximum effective kill radius of like 1,600 meters, like a mile. You can shoot somebody and kill them a mile away. Right? Except for one thing. You're going to need a firing pin, right? Because no matter how powerful the weapon, without the firing pin, it's no good at all. I think we've run into the same problem in our marriages. I think our marriages, we can get all the stuff right, and I've put this message off for a few weeks, but really and honestly, man, this is the most important part of the marriage. And we're continuing today. If you hadn't been here, we're in our marriage series. In the last few weeks, we've talked a whole lot about tangible ways to make your marriage work. We talked about being able to experience love and to speak love and to communicate what those feelings of love are. And that's going to be good. That works, and it's going to man, it's going to give you all the pieces of like that Ferrari. You know, you can really go from like, 63 Beetle to Ferrari, by doing some right things. But the one thing that we haven't talked about is the fuel in that tank. The jelly to the peanut butter sandwich, right? Because it's just not the same without it. In the Bible, there are different kinds of love. And I think as we look at the kinds of love that are in the Bible, we understand a little bit about what love is, and we can kind of put ourselves in these places. So like, there's a kind of love that everybody's probably really familiar with. It's the ooey gooey butterfly, will you go out with me, check yes or no love. You know that where you see that little third grader on the playground and your heart goes pitter patter and you just head over heels and like, I'm going to marry that boy. That kind of love and that attractional kind of love that leads to kind of passion. It's a Greek word called Eros, and it's an Eros kind of love. And it's the love that, man, if you don't have it, you're not going to have a decent marriage. It's the passion, man. It's the ooey gooeys. It's the romance. It's, and I see you guys out there and I think, oh, this guy's just romantic. Kind of like me, But that is kind of the love that makes us get married. Kind of goes that way, and we have that passion and that like longing and those desires where we just feel all emotional, right? And then there's this other love, and it's called phileo love. And it is the kind of love like, it's the next level. It's like I have this fondness, this connection, this friendship kind of love with you. So like if you have the romance and the friendship, then you kind of like got it going, right? The problem with that and that's, and I'll be honest, that's the way our marriage started. Like she was just overwhelmingly attracted. Couldn't resist, couldn't fight it off. Butterflies, just, passion. She was, man, she just had to have me. It's true. Why are y'all laughing? But the thing was, we became really great friends too. And so we had this passion and this friendship. And it was awesome. And when we got married, man, I think that was a lot of what drove our marriage was we were friends, we were for each other, and we were passionate about each other. One of us more than the other, probably. She got over it. We had the Ferrari for a while there, but it didn't have any fuel in it. And what happens to things that sit and things that aren't used, they begin to crumble and rot and fall apart and things begin to break down, right? And so that's kind of what happened in our marriage. And it got really ugly. And a lot of you guys may have experienced this in marriage. You may have fallen in love. You may have become friends, and you may have gotten married. But then things start to really attack your marriage and start to be brutal, right? Addictions start to take over. Because what happens in an addiction in a marriage, it's an affair. Okay, you introduce a party into the marriage that's not part of the marriage. And so there's a third part in the marriage that's destructive in the marriage. And so it starts to tear that marriage apart. And then you've got these other issues, you got, I don't think men and women were created to live together. naturally. Because, like, you're two opposites, man, and those friendships start to be, why do you have to take so long to get out of the car? I could go in Walmart, get what I want, and be back by the time you get out of the car. We were in the parking lot. You didn't notice that we were pulling into the parking lot? Little things start to just drive us crazy about each other. Why do you always leave the doors open? Why do you leave the toilet seat up? You know, like all of these little things, and all of a sudden they start to really irritate us and drive us apart. And then those little things, and they become bigger things because we have these flaws in our lives. We're all flawed people, right? Like, if you think you're the perfect one in your marriage, then you're the problem in your marriage. Because we are all flawed. I was extremely messed up. I was self-centered. I was all about me. I had addiction. I really was king of my own world. And I was probably extremely hard to live with and get along with. And the thing is, I didn't see it because when you get into that state, man, you don't really think of others, right? But something happened in my life that changed our marriage forever. See, I'd grown up in church, and I've told you this story. I'd grown up in church, and I'd been to the camps and said the prayers and did what, this is the Bible Belt. I got saved, and every time, you know what I mean? Like every time. I had those experiences, but the truth was, man, I didn't want to go to hell. Right. Like, any of you guys grow up in the Bible Belt? You grow up around? Like, the big point was to try to avoid hell. And, man, I did that every time. Like, they said, you want to go to hell? And I was like, no. What, hell? No, I don't. Thank you. Well, just say this prayer then. All right, let's do it. Let's do it because I want to not go to hell. That would be good. That'd be better, right? And so I did that. But it never really changed me. It just made me feel a lot better. And everything just built and built and built. And my marriage was ending. It was coming to an end. And the thing was, we'd had Justice, and she was little, and I was messed up, and I didn't know how to be a father. I didn't know how to be a husband. I didn't know how to be a human productively. And we had this kid, and then it was just more guilt and more of all of this, and everything was just coming down. There was all this pressure. And the thing was, I loved my wife, Eros. I had passion toward her, and we were friends, but we just couldn't get it together. But then I was resurrected and transformed. God found me in the middle of my hell, in the middle of my brokenness, and he changed my life. And it wasn't, say, a prayer type thing. You know what I mean? It wasn't, oh, avoid hell. It was like, oh, I'm in hell. I'm sinking. I'm going down. And I need someone to throw me a rope because this is the end. And I felt like it was the end of my life. I felt like I was dying. It wasn't that I was just losing my marriage and just losing my kid and just abandoning my family and just everything going. It was me. I was dying. And God radically transformed me and changed me. And for the first time in my life, I knew what it meant to live. And that love that God showed me in my desperation, that's called agape love. It's a deeper love. It's a love that can be better defined as a commitment. It wasn't conditional. It wasn't based on anything that I was or anything that I thought I should be. It wasn't, there was no condition God put on me. And it wasn't like God said, you're so bad, you're so evil, you're messing everything up, you're the problem. It was God saying, I love you and I would desperately love to rescue you. And man, I was done. And I cried out, God, just rescue me, save me, and I'll give my whole life to you. I'll agape you. I'll commit myself to you. And when that happened, our marriage transformed. See, God is the jelly to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich of your marriage. God is the strings to your nice guitar that makes it make beautiful sounds. God is the gas in your Ferrari. It's that God thing that we miss out in our marriage. It's that agape love that we miss in our marriage. And there's so many times and you see people come in and their marriages are falling apart and they're broken. And the thing is, the first question is God part of your marriage? And inevitably in this area, everybody's saved and everybody's a Christian. And everybody knows Jesus. Everybody asks Jesus into their heart. Well, what's the problem then? Well, he's looking at porn, and I'm going out with the girls, and we're drinking and partying, and we're doing this, and I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking, you don't know Jesus the way I know Jesus. You've never really been rescued. Because what I found was that when you are rescued, you have no desire for those things in your life. You are, what the Bible says, a new and different person. And the old things are gone and the new life has come. And it's funny because we live in the Bible Belt and everybody thinks that they live in the light. But what I find is it's just not true. Everybody's said a prayer. Everybody's asked Jesus into their heart. But that's not resurrection. It's not resurrection. It doesn't transform you and change you into a new and different person. It's an undying commitment to God that I will give myself wholly and completely to you, and whatever you ask of me and whatever you desire for me, I want. And what we find out then is that life begins to happen because I do the things that are the will of God. When all along I was believing this lie, like I can get saved, but I can still live however I want to and I'll find life. And what I found was life doesn't exist that way. Everything, the Bible says this, says there is a way that seems right to man, but that path leads to death. That path ends in destruction. And so the things that I always thought gave me life, like, man, partying with my friends and hanging out and good times and telling stories and all that, just took me deeper and deeper and deeper into hell, and it deeper and deeper into trouble in my marriage, and deeper and further away from God, and harder and stronger into my addictions and into my brokenness until... And this is the allure, is to pull you into this path or this pattern of the world, and it's always going to be good at first. It's always going to be good at first. But one day you're going to wake up and you're going to go, how did I get here? How did I get here? What happened to my marriage? What happened to my life? What happened to my job? What happened to my kids? What happened? And you're going to find yourself on the bottom and you're going to choose life or death. And I believe God pursues us. I believe with all of my heart that God passionately pursues us. I believe with all my heart that God loves us. I believe that he loved me first when I was unable to love him. And when he changed me, he changed my marriage. And right now, maybe the only thing you have going in your marriage is the stuff we talked about. You're like, we're getting along good now, we're doing that. But I'm telling you, that stuff will not last. There's going to be a time where you forget to be nice. There's going to be a time where that is just simply not enough. In the book of Ephesians, it says this. It says, wives, Ephesians chapter 5, it says, wives, honor your husbands. Honor your husbands. Then it turns around and says, husbands, love your wives. As Christ, Messiah, as Messiah loves the church and gave his life for it. Husbands, you are to love your wives this way. And this is the way it looks. Because when I have that kind of love, that commitment, that covenant love. See, marriage is turned into nothing but a contract. It's just a contract. We go down to the government office, we file papers, we get a contract. We go out, we do our thing, we mess it up, and we go get our contract voided. It's marriage today, right? But the marriage of God is covenant. What it is, it's covenant. It's agape covenant. I love you, commit to you without condition, without exception. Read Corinthians chapter 13. Paul says, love never fails. Love never gives up. Love doesn't count wrongs. Love forgives. Love is always true. This is what agape, true, committed love is. And when we have that, and we only have that because God's in our lives, that's the only way you can have Eros. You can have affection, you can have passion, you can have friendship, you can have fellowship, but you can't have unconditional love because God is agape. God is love. And if he is not the center of your life, you can't be trusted. You can't be honored. Wives, honor your husbands. I want you to notice something when you go today and look in Ephesians. Ephesians chapter 4 and Ephesians chapter 3 is about becoming a new man. When Ephesians chapter 5 gets here and he's talking about marriage, he's talking about the marriage of those who are regenerated and rescued by God. See, when you're in a marriage without God, how can you have honor? How can you be honorable? Because we're flawed and we're failed people, right? So wives, how do you honor your husbands? How do you love your wives and lay down yourself for them and commit to them? You can't do it. It's supernatural. And that's the covenant of marriage, is the commitment of marriage. And it's beyond any written piece of paper. It's beyond any government contract. It's above and beyond any wedding ceremony. I find that today couples are way more interested in the wedding than they are the marriage. It's astounding to me. The whole dream of little girls is the wedding. What about the marriage? Not just the I do's, but the I do's forever. I commit myself to you under covenant because I am of God and he is in me and I am in him. And it's God in you connected to God in me that creates a supernatural bond that doesn't break down even when you want to beat your spouse with a shovel. We don't do it. Why? Because we're different people. We're different people. I am a new creation. I'm created new. I'm new in God. I'm set free and delivered. I am no longer bound by the way I used to be. I'm a new person. And when I become new, it ties my marriage together. Now, I know some of you guys are sitting there and going, I want that. I've committed my life to God. I want that so bad. But my spouse just will not commit to God. How can we have a lopsided union like that? How can I honor? How can I love unconditionally when God is not part of her life or his life? And I'll tell you this, there are no guarantees. I wish I could say that stay strong and everything will work out. But I can't say that to you because sometimes it doesn't work out. See, Celia went first. And you know what happened to our marriage when that happened? I was done. You go do your thing. I'm done. When you committed to this relationship, we agreed this was the direction we're going. Now you're changing directions on us. And I was done. But she prayed, and she prayed, and she got other people to pray. And my mom started praying. My wife was praying, and I got more miserable, and it sucked bad. It was horrible. They did it to me. But when I changed, man, everything was great, and everything was worth it. I can't tell you that's going to happen. Sometimes we fall in Eros, and because we fall in Eros and we have fantasy for what marriage should be or what we want, or maybe somebody just showed us love for the first time and we've never really been loved before. And we will bind ourselves with people who aren't followers, people who aren't regenerated and new and different people. Guys, it sets our marriages up for disaster. And I wish I could tell you that if you just do these things, everything's going to be okay. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that. I can't tell you that the addictions are going to be broken. I can't tell you that if you'll just do A, B, and C, that everything will be all right. Sometimes people leave. But I can tell you this, that if we are committed to God first, and we have given God our whole lives, that no matter what happens, you will never be left and you will never be abandoned. You will be okay. Without God first in our lives, though, we're just playing a game that's set up to lose. Now, it may make common sense for most of you guys. It may be like, oh yeah, everybody knows that. No, what I found is nobody knows that. We love to play at Christianity. You're a Christian? Oh yeah. Got a Christian marriage? Oh yeah, it's great. Is God first in your life? Not really. You ever been radically changed? You ever used to be one way and now you're a different way? See, that's what it really looks like. Guys, get over the saying the prayer thing, please. You can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. It's fine. But if you don't think differently and live differently, then you're not different. You're just the same old thing with a different label. if you want your marriage to work, and if you want your marriage to be vibrant, if you want to be secure in your marriage, you got to make God the first thing in it. I told Celia this last night. I love God more than I love you. She thought that was sexy. I love God more than I love my wife. I love God more than I love my children. I have that kind of relationship where I know that they are not permanent, but He is. And here's my point, and here's what I want you to go home with, and here's what I want you to ponder and think on this week. God is life. God is life. There is no life outside of God. But we chase everything that is an imitation in life. And I want you to think about your marriage, and I want you to ask this question. I want you to think about your relationships with other people, and I want you to ask this question. I want you to think about the way you function in life, and I want you to ask this question. Am I trying to find what only God can give in my spouse? See, I was trying to make Celia God, and she never lived up. She never satisfied me. I tried drinking, I've tried parties, I've tried running wild, I've tried being free, I've tried doing my own thing, I've tried everything in the world because I had this huge God hole. I was created with this huge hole. And I looked everywhere for it, and I thought, man, I love this person. She's hot, man, and she's nice, and she's sweet, and she worships me, everything I need. And so I put that on her. I projected God onto her, and she failed me. And all I found was another empty hole and another lost place and more wasted time. And you know what it is? It's repulsive. Because when you put things on people that they can't possibly do, it repels them. Our marriages are breaking down because we don't have God in them, and we're trying to make our spouse be God for us. You're not satisfying me. Listen to me. Nothing of this world will ever satisfy you. She's dying. She's dying. I'm dying, you're dying, we're all dying. There's nothing in this room that's permanent. This building started collapsing the day we put it up. Things of this world are always going to die. But the things of God are permanent. And when we make our marriage covenant on something that is permanent, then she doesn't have to live up to it. If I try to make my friends into God, they will never live up to it. You see my friends, man. You know, that's an easy sell there. Everybody knows that. When we put that on our relationships, we've put something on our relationships that they cannot stand up to. Your friends will never be God for you. They're never going to satisfy you. Habits, hobbies will never be God. They're never going to satisfy you. Money will never be God. It will never, ever, ever, ever satisfy you. Power, it's never going to satisfy you. We project God onto all of these things and pursue them because we believe a lie that those things give life. And what do we end up with? Guitars without strings, Ferraris without gas. Nothing that's useful for anything. When it all comes down to it, a Ferrari without gas is just in the way. When it all comes down to it, a guitar without strings is just useless. Peanut butter without jelly is useless. Ask Jacob. We can't project the thing that is missing in our life on our marriages and on our relationships and expect them to fulfill that. So as we leave today, I want you to ask yourself this question: who around me and what around me am I trying to make be God that's letting me down? Who around me and what around me am I projecting to make me fulfilled? What am I trying to use to make me happy? It's amazing to me that people will get married once and that spouse doesn't do it. And then they get married again and that spouse doesn't do it. And people get married again and that spouse doesn't do it. And all the time we can't figure out that that person you're marrying is never going to be God. And God is the thing you're looking for. God is the thing that we're all looking for. Does that make sense? You want to see your marriages changed? Bring God into it. You want to see your life changed? Bring God into it. You want to see your relationships change? Bring God into it. You're tired of being miserable? Bring God into it. You're tired of always chasing after the wind? Bring God into it. If you're tired, bring God into it. Jesus said, "Come to me and I'll give you rest for your souls." Got to bring God in. All right, I want you guys to stand with me.